Okay, welcome to the decision session of the Executive Member for Housing and Safer Neighbourhoods on Thursday, 16th of March. I'm Councillor Denise Crickhill, Executive Member. Agenda item 1, declarations of interest. I don't have any declarations of interest. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I'm happy to sign those as a correct record. Do you want me to do that now or later? Okay. So that's done. And then agenda item 3 is public participation. And I understand we have one speaker under public participation speaking on the item that is on the agenda at item 4, Ben Burton. So would you like to come up to the table, Ben? You need to press the mic.
Great.
Yeah. And you have 3 minutes starting now. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, hi there. So, I mean, most of you already know me, but I'm here as chair of Labour's Housing Policy Forum and also as a candidate for Heworth. I work in retrofit myself and also work to retrofit at the council, so I've got a good understanding of the challenges you have when you books. So fundamentally, I support the Hug 2 bid application, obviously. We should be maximising all the grant bid. So it'd be good to see more details of what's being bidded on and the size of the number of properties and everything, but aware that's quite challenging to share at this point. But we do support that. But what I'm here for is more around the concern around the wider retrofit approach. So we have roughly 80,000 dwellings in York in total, and the majority of those require some level of retrofit to decarbonise them. And others require much more urgent action to save bills and improve health quality. We're 4 years into this administration's retrofit programme, but we've only delivered about 500 works, mainly just following the government grant opportunities that are available. A lot of these are standard measures like loft insulation, so they're going to require more work in the future. And we also seem to underuse the limited available budget that we have. What this seems to come down to is a kind of a lack of vision for how we're proposing retrofit, so leading to last year's retrofit. Outside the limited grant programmes, there isn't anything in the action plan actions that we probably didn't know 4 years ago. We know that we needed to understand archetypes, so we should already be in there designing up solutions for them and then sharing them publicly with people in the city so that they can learn from our experiences. We knew we needed to create an advice service for people that ended up being started by the charity sector. And that also now needs to become more of a one-stop shop solution, and there needs to be more progress on that. We also need to phase out gas boilers, but there doesn't seem to be a clear plan on that in the action plan. The council needs vision on this. Credit to the new build, there was a vision to build 600 homes to passive house standard, and that might not have fully happened in the time period, but it was an aspiration. It gave something to drive to. Whereas this seems to be it's a bit complicated, so we've stepped back from kind of putting out grand, bold, ambitious targets on it. But it is vital that we do something around this because there is a lot of urgency on it. So the new legislation means that new private tenancies from 2025 will have to be EPCC. Currently, that's about 10,000 PRS properties in the city that are below EPCC. We already have a shortfall of long-term rental stock due to short-term lets. So this could be a major crisis if that comes about. And it just doesn't seem to be the urgency externally from the outside of the council seen for how we're going to support people to adequately meet those challenges so that we retain working stock in the future. So that's what we want to see more of, is a little bit more vision, a bit more urgency going forward. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, which we will take into account very shortly as we move on to the next item. Thank you. You can sit down. Do stick around, certainly. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 4, which is the update on the retrofit programme, including the home upgrade grant phase 2 bid. So, Michael, are you going to say a bit about that? And perhaps you might pick up on some comments from the speaker. as you wish.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the paper in front of you is a general update on the retrofit programme, with a bit more specific detail about the home upgrade grant, phase 2. I plan to just briefly run through what home upgrade grant stroke HUG 2 is, and then a little bit of an update on the retrofit programme since this report was written. So HUG 2 is for off-gas properties in the private sector, properties which are EPC-D or below for low-income households. The funding is 100% funding to cover both the capital works and, crucially, the revenue works, so the staff costs internally to deliver that work. It will be a 2-year programme, so the expectation is it will run to March 2025. And this has been brought forward following the approval of the retrofit action plan in December by executive, which seeks to maximise the delivery of future government programmes in the private sector. So picking up on some of those challenges that Ben Burton mentioned around private rented sector and some of the retrofit works that are required, this programme would specifically deliver retrofit works in the private sector. HUG 2, our HUG 2 submission covers fabric and heating upgrades in rural properties. It covers upgrades to apartments that have electric heating, likely to be city centre, and then general fabric and heating upgrades to old non-gas properties. In terms of the request for specific detail, HUG 2 didn't ask us to come up with a specific list of properties that would be tackled. Instead, it asked us to come up with criteria and principles that we would follow in delivering those works. So the next stage would be to undertake surveys and to then identify the specific properties that would benefit from these works. And those works are likely to range between about 700,000 and just over £1 million, plus the revenue contribution. In terms of the wider retrofit programme, I can confirm that we have submitted an application to extend the delivery timescale for LAD 3 and HUG 1 to the 30th of September to enable us to deliver as much of that programme as possible. We're still waiting to hear back whether we've been successful, but it was very much a submission that was collaborative with the funding body. So we're very hopeful that that will be successful, and we'll get that confirmed soon. We were hoping to be able to come back and confirm the outcome of both the HUG 2 bid and the SHDF bid. You'll remember in July, last time we were at this session, we talked about submitting a bid of £1 million under Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, and that's specifically for retrofit works to council houses, which would be £1 million of HRA money and £1 million of grant funding. And that was very specific in terms of the types of properties that we would tackle. So whilst we haven't had a formal response on SHDF and HUG 2, we are extremely positive of the likelihood of success for those programmes. So we are continuing the work immediately to identify suitable properties. Should that grant funding come in, we will accept that offer immediately, and we'll then work on the procurement strategy and the identification of properties, and we will bring a full business case to executive early in the summer, hopefully, just to outline exactly where that money will be spent. Ben commented on the advice service. As you know, and as we've mentioned in this report and previously, we've been successful in securing grant funding to deliver a retrofit service that will enable an existing provider of that service to scale up and offer it to the able to pay market, as well as their current advice service to particularly low income families. There's also lots of conversations going on with RPs around joining up, and there is a further funding opportunity coming through in the next week or so around a larger sub-regional energy advice service, and we expect 2 million of grant funding to be available to York, North Yorkshire and the North East. We're waiting for the prospectus to come out hopefully next week, and then determining the nature of our bid, but it's very much an ambition as set out in the action plan, and we're working on delivering that by bringing in grant funding where we can.
Right, thank you for those various updates as well. It kind of happens every week, doesn't it, that there's something else to update on this. I just had a couple of questions. One, it's quite well, it's quite specific but quite important. Somewhere in the paper on the HUG grant, you mentioned there's one criteria is for area schemes. Is that something or that we're going to be able to progress at this point? Or
hello there, Andrew Bebbington, Housing Policy Officer. Yeah, that's right. So that's a new element of HUG 2 as far as government sort of funded retrofit schemes go, where in the past the fuel poverty eligibility criteria has all been based around household income, which of course causes a lot of administration requirement and can delay delivery of the programs. So there's a new eligibility route for neighbourhood sort of low income characteristics in HUG 2, and there's somewhere around 10% of homes in York fall within this sort of low income neighbourhood characteristic. And certainly where possible, where the properties are suitable, and there's available measures to retrofit the homes, that we'll certainly be using that route as well to sort of try and bring in a neighbourhood sort of scale approach to delivering HUG 2 retrofit programme.
right, yeah.
Because one of the real challenges around the government funded schemes is they're very specific, and around eligibility of both the resident and the type of property. And it's created a significant administration burden of taking households through a process before you consider whether grant funding and retrofit is suitable for that property. It's been difficult to find properties together that all meet that criteria. So this should give us more flexibility to deliver a kind of a tailored solution at a bigger scale within a neighbourhood, rather than just picking out one or two individual properties that meet all of the criteria.
So that's something we'll try to do through the HUG 2 if we get that. Yeah. Okay. And then I suppose my only other question was, well, I've got a few comments in a minute as well, but obviously I don't disagree with the speaker about the desire that everyone has to scale up all of this even further than we have so far. That is what we need to do. And it seems to me in the retrofit action plan, one of the next sort of challenging but really important things we have to look at is scaling up finance, the financial models. I just wondered if you had anything you can add about how you see that coming next, really.
Yeah, I think I disagree with the speaker on the ambition bit. I mean, I think it's quite explicit in the retrofit action plan what the ambition is. And that's around 95% of council properties being EPCC or above by the end of that action plan. So I think it's quite clear what the ambition is set within that. And the retrofit action plan has a number of routes to achieving that. One is to continue to attract grant funding and to do these bigger, more invasive, more complicated retrofits on those properties that need it. There are a large number of council houses that can, through smaller measures can become an EPCC. So our approach is to incorporate retrofit into our business as usual programme work. So as we're doing things like home modernisation or damp works, we consider retrofit opportunities, and we are procuring a delivery partner who will be skilled up to do any combination of retrofit, damp works and home modernisation work, so that we can take advantage of all of those touch points. And we believe that that will enable us to do retrofit at a more economic way, and to scale it up significantly without relying on grant funding. And then the third area is other sources of finance to deliver retrofit, and it's an area that we continue to work on. We don't have a solution yet, but it's probably one of the fastest changing things within the retrofit world. You know, opportunities that are coming out there for levering in other sources of finance to deliver retrofit work. So hopefully in the coming months we'll be able to bring forward a proposal that will seek to take that further forward as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, too.
Just a couple of examples as well of things that are being brought forward to accelerate the sort of the financial options available. So the York and North Yorkshire LEP is currently undertaking a feasibility study into the one-stop shop retrofit opportunity. And as part of that, financial options, to enable residents to undertake retrofit in their own homes without having to have all the capital up front to do that. And that's part of the feasibility work. So we should know more when that's complete, sort of during next month. And also, I think the UK Innovation Project at York is delivering later this year also includes links with financial finance experts, and that's really at the heart as well of this idea of sort of zero carbon living. Is how can people that can't afford to pay the upfront cost but will be benefiting from bill savings, what financial options are available for that. So yeah, I think that's a really high priority, and it is there's certainly work underway to move us on with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, there's so many things coming forward, aren't there, really, all those different programmes. Okay, so just a few comments. I do think that a great deal has been achieved so far, and energy saving retrofit programmes have been established as part of business as usual for the council, really, from what was more or less a standing start, and that has had to grapple with the effects of 2 years of COVID, cost inflation, recruitment challenges, supply chain issues, and the very short timescales for application and delivery that come with government grants, particularly that did so at the beginning. So I think there's been a lot up against a lot, and a huge amount has been achieved, and I really appreciate and want to recognise the hard work and dedication that officers have put into all of this. I'm really pleased that we've been able to make the progress across all tenures, as I think this is important both for climate action and for reducing fuel poverty. Our work programme for decarbonising our council stock is crucial, but it's also very important we can take action to reduce energy costs in the private rented sector. And as we've been talking about, where owner occupiers have low incomes, and encouraging homeowners who are able to pay for home energy saving home improvements to help them to be able to do that as well, which both reduces carbon emissions and helps to develop those local supply chains that we know are so important. And on that latter point, I am particularly glad, as you've mentioned already, that we're able to support the development of York Energy Advice, so it can advise those two groups of people that you've mentioned, and that there are the further updates through the regional work, which we knew was going to come forward, but is now becoming more of a reality, really. As I said, I do obviously, from my perspective, have sympathy with the need that the notion that there is an urgency to keep on doing this scaling up, but you know, I think we have to engage with the world as it is in reality. And I think we're doing a great job of laying those foundations and moving forward on that scaling up. We can't identify the budget that we need for 70 or 80,000 homes in the city out of council resources. So it has to be a mixture of a lot of different things. It really needs government investment, but if that's not going to be enough, we need to look at those other ways of doing it. And I think all of those ambitions, as Michael says, are in our action plan. I really look forward to all of these things you've just been talking about moving forward and hearing about more successful bids and other initiatives. So with that, I'm very happy to support the recommendations at paragraph 6 on page 6. I think that's that. I don't think we have any other urgent business on the agenda, so that's the end of the meeting. Thank you.